is joining us today. My name is Justine. I'm working with DDI to work on this project and host this presentation with you all. So this is Mr. Donald Ngalla. He's invited today to share with us a lot of information about technology and financial literacy among seniors. Mr. Donald has been living in Canada since 2009, coming from Cameroon, I mean. He has an associate degree in accounting and in banking and finance, so he's the perfect person for the topic of today. On top of that, he is certified with his investment funds in Canada certificate and also life insurance. He's worked in credit union in Cameroon and also has a lot of customer service experiences and has been working for the government. On his free time, he spends time with his two kids and also likes to volunteer to speak about his passion in finance within his community like today, but also take care of his two kids. Alors, Monsieur Donald sera la personne qui va nous faire la présentation aujourd'hui sur la technologie et la littératie financière chez les aînés. Alors, Monsieur Donald a fait sa licence en comptabilité et aussi en finance. Il est certifié avec son certificat d'investissement et il a aussi travaillé dans le crédit au Cameroun et dans le gouvernement. Il est père de deux fils et pendant son temps, il aime bien faire le bénévolat euh, dans sa communauté comme il le fait aujourd'hui avec nous. Alors, Monsieur Donald, Mr. Donald, I'm inviting you to take over the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Justine, for the nice and warm introduction there. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I hope we are all doing okay. It's a bright day outside, and to make out the time to come sit with us and listen. I definitely know you could have been out there enjoying the nice weather. So you will not miss or regret being here because we are in for a really good treat, especially when we're seniors or we know seniors or our parents are seniors or we will become seniors, right? So it's always good to learn, understand how technology and also financial literacy is important for us. All right, so you said all about me, and I will go ahead and start the presentation. All right, so thank you for putting the first slide up there for us. But, I want to ask a question here before we quickly start. For some of us that are seniors on the call, that's okay. We can go to the next slide. A lot of seniors, used to use what is called a passbook. Anybody remembers a passbook? Maybe. Yeah, some people still use it. Do you? Anyone still uses a passbook? Yes, some people still do use it. A few years ago, I did an internship with one of the banks here in Canada. And this old lady came in with a passbook, and it reminded me of, because that's what I saw when I worked in a credit union in Cameroon, right? Passbooks. And then things have evolved, but it was interesting to see, this, I'll call her a young lady, walk in with a passbook, all right? So we need to understand technology and then be able to use that, because even though there is this passbook and there's all of this, but as seniors, we understand it's not easy to transition, right? I still don't know a lot about technology, even though I haven't got, seniors, I think we're talking about 50 and above, right? And so a lot of those people still don't know and understand how to use, technology. So it is a good place for us to at least see how technology is important and how we can use it for ourselves, especially as seniors or people that will become seniors, or as we help our senior parents or anybody around us that's a senior. All right. I guess I'll let Justine say a little bit before I proceed here.
Oui, alors Monsieur Donald disait que auparavant, nous utilisions tous les livrets bancaires pour suivre nos comptes bancaires. Mais maintenant, comme Madame Elisabeth a dit dans la boîte de commentaires, beaucoup de banques ont arrêté ce système. Donc, en ce moment, ils sont en train d'introduire la technologie dans vos transactions bancaires, qui est très importante à connaître pour que vous puissiez aussi profiter de ces nouvelles solutions qui facilitent nos transactions bancaires.
Thank you. All right, so let's look at, what are some advantages, of, technology in the financial world, right? We talk about online banking. Online banking is really big now because it allows us to manage our finances from anywhere, any part of the world at any time, right? And also, we also look at it in terms of, mobile payment. I can sit here today and transfer funds to somebody in Ghana today. I can sit here, right? And all of this is part of technology and the financial world, right? So it's come to help us as well, right? What about, investment apps? A lot of people now can sit at home and do a lot of investments from the comfort of their home, right? We use our cell phones, we use our laptops, our iPads, and all of that, right? And also it's made it easy for us to even access all these financial products and services that are there. And not least but not the last, we can even go on this, financial institutions' websites and research. We can see what otherwise we would have needed to walk in, book an appointment, and all of that. So there is a lot for us to see. And those are some of the advantages when we talk about technology in the financial sector.
Grâce à la technologie, aujourd'hui, nous avons accès à la banque mobile sur les téléphones et les ordi. Nous pouvons utiliser nos téléphones pour envoyer des transferts à l'international ou à des personnes avec nous qui sont beaucoup plus rapides. En plus de ça, nous avons les sites bancaires qui vous montrent tous les produits et les services que chaque banque offre pour que vous puissiez facilement voir quel est le produit qui vous convient le mieux. Donc, c'est important de connaître toutes ces options pour vraiment savoir comment utiliser la banque mobile pour améliorer notre situation financière.
All right. And we all know, with advantages, there are also disadvantages, right? If you're not, maybe one or two people on here cannot testify, you probably have transferred money to some other person. Maybe, right? So we have to be careful about that. And it just takes a longer process for it to come back. Or maybe you've gone to pay a bill online and you've mistakenly add a zero, one number, and you've paid a bigger amount. So, even though it's making life easier for us, but we also have to be careful and also, there are a lot of people using it in a negative way and people are being scammed as well, right? So it has advantages, but it also has disadvantages and we need to be careful with those.
Et en plus des avantages, nous pouvons aussi voir les désavantages de cela. Donc, il faut faire très attention quand vous êtes en train de mettre un chiffre, de ne pas, par exemple, ajouter un zéro de plus ou bien de mal écrire le nom de la personne et puis ça se retrouve chez quelqu'un d'autre. Avec l'avancement de la banque en ligne, on retrouve aussi beaucoup d'escroqueries entre les transactions. Donc, il faut faire très attention de s'assurer que nous faisons des transferts à la bonne personne et aussi pour la bonne raison.
There are quite a few, challenges, and I thought I'd present them to us when it comes to financial literacy, right? In Canada, 54% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, right? That means if they miss one paycheck, there will be a disaster. That's huge. I want us to understand that, right? And that's why financial literacy is important, right? And also, it also says here that 35% say it's challenging to feed themselves and their family. You know, it breaks my heart a lot of time when you walk past a food bank and you see some seniors, sitting there. They've worked hard in this country, but they can't make ends meet. They still have to go to a food bank, right? And that's why it's always good for us to have this discussion and educate ourselves, especially our seniors or those of us that are still going to become seniors in the next few years. Because financial education is key. We don't want to be the ones standing on the lines of those food banks just because we can't make ends meet. And lastly, it says 64% are not on track to save enough for retirement. That's a big thing. We have to also talk about retirement, right? Because that is when, retirement is like a vacation. Most of us, when you want to go on vacation, you plan, you prepare. Even though it's a 1-week vacation, but you take weeks, months to plan for it so you can enjoy it. That's the same thing. Vacation is when we retire, and that's what most seniors will need, to plan ahead so that we can really, really enjoy that vacation.
Oui. Alors, les statistiques qui sont montrent que 54% des Canadiens sont en train de vivre de chèque à paie à chèque à paie. Donc, en fait, ils ne sont pas capables. Si un jour il y a un retard de paiement, ils seront incapables de suivre le même rythme qu'ils vivaient auparavant. Ça va les mettre dans les bâtons de roue. Et ce que M. Donald voudrait aujourd'hui, après la présentation, c'est que nous soyons capables d'être instruits pour que nous ne tombons pas dans ces 54%. En plus de cela, 35% des Canadiens montrent que c'est difficile pour eux de nourrir leur famille dû à leurs finances. Et cela lui brise beaucoup le cœur chaque fois qu'il passe près des personnes âgées parce que beaucoup de ces personnes âgées ont travaillé toute leur vie, mais à cause de qu'ils sont maintenant dus à la santé et l'âge, ils doivent arrêter le travail, ils sont obligés d'être trouvés comme dans des food banks pour, pour se nourrir, dans des banques alimentaires, parce que ces paychecks qu'ils recevaient, ce n'est pas le même qu'ils reçoivent maintenant. Alors, les statistiques montrent aussi que 64% de nous, en ce moment, ne sont pas en train d'épargner d'une façon qui va nous éviter de tomber dans ce rythme-là, que pendant la retraite, nous nous retrouvons dans les banques alimentaires. C'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, il a créé un plan que nous devrions suivre pour que ceci n'arrive pas, pour que nous ne tombions pas dans les statistiques et pour nous aider à savoir épargner parce que épargner, c'est comme se préparer pour des vacances. Donc, il faut vraiment planifier cela, mettre de l'important et planifier cela pour que nous soyons prêts le moment où notre retraite vient.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. And just before we move on to the next slide, it says there that we live in the wealthiest country in the world, but we always have money problems. And why do we have these money problems? Because of lack of financial education. And that's why we're here today, so we can talk about that and we can be able to, better ourselves going forward, moving from today in terms of our financial life.
Oui. Alors, ceci montre aussi que nous tombons dans cette situation parce que nous avons le manque d'éducation financière. Et c'est qu'ayant cette éducation financière, que nous serons capables plus tard d'épargner d'une façon stratégique pour que pour que nous soyons prêts au moment de la retraite. Pourtant, nous vivons dans un pays qui est assez riche, donc nous pouvons prendre avantage de cela pour être prêts.
Right? And so on here, I want us to believe in financial education, right? We need to learn how to manage our money. And I believe that's the biggest challenge with most of us. We have to understand how money works, right? We have to make money work for us. If we don't understand how money works and we don't make money to work for us, then we will keep working for money. We don't want to work for money. We want to be able to make use and understand the money we've worked for so that that money also works for us. That's the key. And because a lot of people did not understand it, that's why, like I mentioned before, we might end up seeing some of our seniors, ending in food banks and other things, or not being able to retire and things like that, right? And most important, we have to understand that our future is in our hands. We have control of our future. It's not our employer, it's not a union we are in, it's not the government, it's not the financial institution, but it is in our hands, right? Our future is in our hands. We have to take advantage of that. We have to take care of that. Otherwise, we will end up in a situation where we are regretting.
Pour être prêt pour la retraite, il faut comprendre comment fonctionne l'argent. Si vous ne comprenez pas combien fonctionne l'argent, vous allez toujours travailler pour l'argent, pendant que d'autres personnes font des investissements qui permettent que leur argent travaille pour eux. Pour comprendre l'argent et arriver à un meilleur résultat, il faut savoir que votre avenir est dans votre main. Il ne faut pas mettre la charge sur votre travail, sur l'union ou sur le système, mais savoir comment vous éduquer pour savoir comment prendre avantage du système pour que celui-ci peut promouvoir à un meilleur futur, ce qui est possible si vous cherchez à agrandir votre éducation financière et mettre ce que vous avez appris en place.
I thought I shared this with you, right? It says, if you think education is expensive, wait until you see how much ignorance costs, right? To put it in another word, we can't just say, I didn't know. We have to go. And that's why technology comes into play. Some of the things we couldn't find out years back, with technology, we can be able to look into that. But also, it also means that we can also be able to seek help from professionals in those fields so that we can be able to make sure that we are not making those mistakes. I'll share a couple of stories here with you down the road to show you how ignorance costs more and it's more expensive than if you sit with some professional and pay them a little bit, or you learn through technology.
Oui, alors les mots que vous voyez ici disent, si vous pensez que l'éducation coûte cher, attendez de voir ce que coûte l'ignorance. Grâce à la technologie que nous avons aujourd'hui, nous avons accès aux ressources qui peuvent aider notre situation financière. Mais si vous choisissez de l'ignorer et de rester dans l'ignorance, cela va vous coûter encore plus que rechercher des solutions. En plus de cela, M. Donald explique qu'il faut prendre avantage des professionnels sur lesquels vous vous êtes inscrit. Quand vous vous inscrivez à une banque, vous avez accès de prendre des rendez-vous avec des conseillers financiers pour voir comment améliorer votre situation financière. Mais si vous ne le faites pas, si vous ne faites pas régulièrement des rendez-vous, peut-être une fois par année ou plus, avec ces conseillers, vous choisissez de rester dans l'ignorance et puis cela va en résultat vous coûter plus et vous allez rester dans la même situation de paycheck, de vivre par les chèques chaque fois. Donc, il faut prendre le temps comme aujourd'hui, c'est une bonne étape de prendre l'initiative de s'éduquer, connaître plus de ressources.
And this one says the change begins with you, right? You have to start here. So I think there is a part at the top of the slide, but basically what it says is that we're here today because of the decisions we've made in the past, right? And so to go past those decisions, we have to start to make that change today to determine what the future will be. Just like the example I was saying, if we don't make changes today and plan for that 1 week vacation, we're going there, the way the vacation turns out is the way we planned it, right? If we don't make changes on how our retirement will be, right? If we don't make those changes today and put things in place, we will not enjoy that retirement. So we want to make sure that where we are today is because of the things that happened in the past. But if we were ignorant and did not know certain things, we can learn them today, and then we can be able to, prepare and make changes so that we can enjoy the ending.
Alors, ces mots partagés disent le changement commence avec vous, mais vous devez commencer là où vous êtes afin que afin que la fin change. Alors, Monsieur Donald partage que c'est pour ça que planifier est important. C'est vrai qu'on peut avoir fait des erreurs dans le passé, mais si on choisit aujourd'hui de changer, il est possible d'améliorer notre situation. Et tout comme les vacances, si vous êtes juste en train de penser, oh, l'année prochaine, j'irai en vacances, l'année prochaine, j'irai en vacances sans planifier, l'année prochaine, vous n'allez pas aller en vacances. Donc, si vous remettez toujours vos plans de retraite à l'année prochaine, la retraite va vous retrouver sans aucun plan. Donc, c'est important de choisir de changer et de mettre cela en action.
All right. So before we dive into this, I want us to talk about 3 big financial challenges that most Canadians would face. All right. Not only seniors, but even those that are not seniors. But before we get into them, I want to ask a question here, and anybody can mute if they want to or say something. But tax season is over. Most of us have filed our taxes. And probably, I'm assuming most people received the refund. Some people might end up paying. The question I wanted to ask is, what do you plan to do with the refund that you got? Or what have you done with the refund that you did receive from your taxes? It's important why I asked that, because without financial knowledge, all we are thinking is I have extra money to spend, right? But we don't understand that but if you have financial knowledge and education, you understand that there are certain things maybe I need to take care of first, right? It could be my debt, it could be my retirement, and things like that. So that's the reason why I ask, right? What are we planning to do with that? And I see somebody just mentioned, they ended up owing the CRA. It's unfortunate you did. But I can definitely talk with you after, and hopefully there will be ways that we can help you not to pay the CRA back. All right? But I'll let Justin talk a little bit.
Oui, juste pour traduire, la saison des taxes est maintenant finie, est bien à la fin. Et après cela, beaucoup de vous ont eu ou à payer le gouvernement ou ont reçu de l'argent du gouvernement. Alors, M. Donald vous invite à partager qu'est-ce que vous avez fait pour ceux qui ont reçu l'argent du gouvernement, qu'est-ce que vous avez fait avec cela. Et pour ceux qui ont eu à payer, vous invite à avoir une conversation avec lui plus tard pour voir comment éviter de payer le gouvernement, mais de recevoir du gouvernement. Alors, si quelqu'un ici a reçu, je vous invite à partager ce que vous avez fait avec ce que vous avez reçu.
Right. So let's talk about taxes. Taxes are a big challenge to most Canadians, not only seniors, but to most Canadians, right? Because we all here, I'm assuming most people on here are working, or maybe some are seniors that have retired already. But if you're working, you understand that when you earn your paycheck, before you receive your paycheck, it's a net amount. Taxes have already been taken up, right? If you take that money that has already been taxed and you go to spend it to buy a jacket or a t-shirt, like we are all wearing, or a dress, what happens? Especially here in Ontario, you still have to pay HST.
Yes.
That is tax on top of the tax, right? And I know the statistics said most Canadians are struggling, they can't even save. But if you're one of those that are fortunate to be able to save a little bit, if you don't know the proper place to save that money, right, any growth in it, it's still going to be taxed. So there's just taxes all over. There's so much taxes. And I always see the look on people's face when I let them know the fourth one, that when you die, you still get taxed. And people look at me and they say, what do you mean? But that's true, right? And that's something for maybe a different whole topic on its own that we can always talk about. But yes, when we die, we still get taxed. Our estate still gets taxed. And the one big thing, which I'll talk about this, is that in our community, a lot of people don't have a will. And when they die, it poses a big issue. And that's why we get all these GoFundMes in our community, because people don't understand this. They don't have a will, and they don't understand what is called the probate court system. And because of that lack of information, that's why they end up getting all these GoFundMes and things like that. So taxes are big. We need to understand it. And for some people that said they pay taxes, it's always a good time to consult with a financial professional and understand how they can help you out with this. All right. I'll let Justine explain a little bit about that as well.
Oui, donc avec les taxes, on doit faire très attention sur comment est-ce qu'on les utilise parce que ce qu'on reçoit du gouvernement a déjà été taxé. Donc, si vous partez utiliser ça encore pour vos dépenses, elles seront encore taxées. Donc, ce que vous avez gagné, vous perdez une partie de cela. En plus de ça, si vous mettez ça dans un compte d'épargne sans faire attention, le compte d'épargne peut aussi être taxé. Donc, malgré que vous avez eu du profit, ce profit va être encore perdu avec les taxes. Et même une autre chose à savoir, c'est que même si vous mourrez, vous serez encore taxé. Donc, il est très important de connaître vraiment, comprendre comment les taxes se passent pour éviter de payer le plus de taxes possible parce qu'à la fin de la journée, ça s'ajoute et ça peut aussi être une façon d'épargner en une. On pourra avoir toute une conversation sur les taxes plus tard, mais en attendant cela, M. Donald vous invite à rencontrer un conseiller financier pour savoir, regarder à vos dépenses et savoir comment épargner sur la quantité de taxes que vous payez. Et comme ça va aussi aider à promouvoir, à agrandir vos épargnes pour votre retraite. Une autre chose aussi à noter, c'est euh, le testament de mort. Beaucoup de personnes dans notre communauté ne pensent pas à écrire un testament, mais c'est aussi une chose très importante à considérer une fois que vous allez, on ne souhaite pas, mais une fois que vous allez mourir pour votre famille parce que le gouvernement va aussi ajouter des taxes sur cela et ce qui va être partagé avec votre famille. Donc, il ne faut pas que vos épargnes aillent à l'eau. Donc, c'est pour ça que le testament est très important.
Thank you. And let's move into the second big financial challenge, right? It's debt. You know, this is big because most of us come from a background from Africa where you have to have money to purchase anything. To build a house, you have to have cash and build your house. To buy your car, you have to have the cash to buy your car, right? But when we come here, we understand that we can definitely get those things on credit, right? Meaning we are taking a debt to get those things, and then we're paying that debt back gradually. So we have to understand, right? Because there's several different types of debts. There's mortgage debt for people that own a home, credit card debt, right? Probably almost all of us here own a credit card, right? Because, and then there are personal loans, there are car loans, there are lines of credit, and OSAP is for, student loan to go to school, right? And the big thing here is that all these debts, they charge you what is called compound interest on them. And I want us to note that, because we need to understand what these debts are. We have to find a way on how we can get out of this debt. But we need to first of all understand what these debts will do to us, right? And then how we can get out of it. I have a story that, I always tell people when I sit. When I came to Canada, I didn't understand debts and all of that. I went into my financial institution and they told me I need to build credit. And one of the ways I can start building my credit is to have a credit card. And I gladly took a credit card. Luckily at the time, it was only for $500 that I was given. And thank God they only gave me $500 because before the week ran out, I had maxed out the credit card. I thought it was free money. I didn't know I was supposed to pay it back. And so I went and I started using it and used it all before the week ran out. And then I discovered that a bill started coming, and the tricky thing, and what I want us to pay attention is that on that bill, it says you can pay a minimum of, right? That's the big part. On all of these loans here, they tell you can pay a minimum of. If we only keep paying that minimum, it becomes a problem. And down at the bottom in fine print, it actually tells you that if you pay only this minimum, it's going to take you X amount of years or months to actually pay it. But a lot of us don't even go down to see that information. We just see, okay, how much am I paying? It says I can pay $50. I pay it and I go. But what I realized, okay, was that in that $500, they send me a bill and say you can pay a minimum of about $45. And happily, I paid the $45. My thought process was that my bill now will reduce from $500 to $555 because I paid $45. But no, right? They take out the interest first, right? A lot of people I sit with, they don't even know how much is the interest rate on their credit card. Mine was 19.9%. That's high, right? And that's what it is today. I think 20.9%. And for some people, somebody told me once theirs is about 27%. I'm like, wow, that means you really have a bad credit to to have a credit to have that higher percentage. But where I'm going with this is that when you pay that minimum, they first of all take out the interest. So let's say I paid $45, maybe about $39 went to the interest, and only about $6 actually went to reduce that $500. So I'm paying $45 to only reduce $6, and I'm going to pay again the next month. So you can see how long it's going to take for you to pay out that debt. And because we don't understand it, that's the problem. we don't need to pay only that minimum. But the interesting part about my situation is in that same financial institution, I had opened up a savings account and I was putting $100 a month in that savings account, right? How much do you think was the interest I was getting on that savings account? 0.5%. So I am working hard, putting $100 in an account that is giving me 0.5%, but I'm paying 20% to the same financial institution. It doesn't make sense, right? It would have made more sense if I added that $100 to the $45 and paid $145 to my credit card. I would pay off that credit card within another 5-6 months. But because I did not understand that until somebody sat with me and showed me, a little bit of financial education, that's when I understood. And by then I had paid this 500 probably more than 3 times, and I still had it going. All right. So it's very important to understand these debts and what they can do to us. All right. I know I've said a whole lot. I don't know if Justine can say all of that in a minute, but I'll let her say.
Oui, dans le deuxième segment, c'est à propos des dettes. Les dettes, c'est quelque chose que nous, surtout beaucoup de nous qui venons d'un pays où vous êtes habitués à payer avec le cash, c'est un concept qui est nouveau et c'est un concept qu'on ne veut pas à la fin être euh, enterré dans les dettes. Et si vous êtes enterré dans les dettes, sachez qu'il y a un moyen de sortir de cela et il faut sortir de cela avant de pouvoir épargner parce que ça va manger beaucoup de vos finances, de vos épargnes. Ce qui se passe surtout la plupart du temps, c'est qu'on aura une carte de crédit. Une fois qu'on veut peut-être faire des rénovations à la maison, on va utiliser une ligne de crédit, puis on va prendre la voiture sur le crédit, le frigo sur le crédit. Et à la fin du mois, quand le chèque arrive, toutes nos dépenses vont sur les dettes. Une fois que les dépenses vont sur les dettes, vous avez l'intérêt. Maintenant, la banque, généralement, va vous demander de payer un minimum sur toute la balance qu'il y a sur la carte, mais le minimum, généralement, ne va couvrir que l'intérêt. Donc, si vous vous concentrez à payer juste le minimum, vous ne payez que l'intérêt. Si vous avez $100 et que la banque dit minimum à payer $10, sachez que vous n'êtes en train de payer que le $10 et non la dépense que vous avez faite sur la carte. Ça fait que d'ici 5-6 mois, vous allez toujours voir que votre banque est à $100. C'est pour ça que certaines personnes, leur balance est à $9 000 au début de l'année et leur balance se retrouve à $9 000 à la fin de l'année. Mais ils voient qu'ils ont mis 500 chaque mois, mais la balance est la même parce qu'on se concentre juste sur le minimum payment. Le minimum payment est calculé par $10 plus l'intérêt et les frais. Donc, si vous ne payez que le minimum, vous ne payez que l'intérêt. Et en plus de ça, l'intérêt s'accumule, donc le minimum agrandit chaque fois. Ce que M. Donald explique, c'est que au lieu de ce qui se passe des fois, c'est que on aura un $5 de plus, excusez-moi, un $100 de plus. Au lieu de mettre ce $100 sur la carte de crédit, on se dit, oh, on a déjà payé le minimum, mieux je mets sur le compte d'épargne. Pourtant, le compte d'épargne ne sera qu'à 5%. Même pas 5%, 0,5%, donc même pas 1%. Ce qui fait que, au lieu que ce $100 diminue plus que l'intérêt, donc le $100 s'ajoute à la balance pour qu'à la fin de l'année, vous devez moins d'argent à la banque. Vous avez mis ça dans votre compte d'épargne pour que ça s'assoie juste là. Pourtant, d'ici 5 mois, si ça s'assoit à droite, la gauche va accumuler un autre $100 en intérêt. Donc, il est très important de savoir comment comprendre les dettes et comprendre comment ça marche. Parce que si vous regardez sur les petits mots écrits sur votre relevé de compte, vous allez voir que ça dit en tout petit que ça vous prendra 100 ans de repayer cette dette. si vous payez $10 par mois, mais on ne veut pas être là pour 100 ans à repayer une dette. Donc, une autre chose qui est ajoutée là, c'est qu'il est recommandé d'avoir à peu près 40% de votre salaire en dette. Ce qui veut dire, ça, c'est comme un healthy margin, qui est comme une limite saine. Malgré que la banque va vous donner une ligne de crédit de $10 000, si vous utilisez $10 000, sachant que cela dépasse 40% de votre salaire, en fait, vous êtes en train de faire des dépenses que honnêtement, vous ne devez pas faire. Vous n'êtes pas capable financièrement de faire. C'est hors de votre budget. Même si vous avez le prêt disponible, ça ne veut pas dire que vous devez prendre le prêt. Donc, des fois, on doit se rappeler de la même manière que quand on était au pays, quand on vivait juste de cash, qu'il y a des situations où, en fait, nous ne sommes juste pas capables de prendre cette charge. Donc, et c'est correct de ne pas prendre cette charge sous les dettes. Et c'est en oubliant cette, cette façon de faire que beaucoup de nous, malheureusement, des fois se retrouvent en terrible de dette parce que la dette est disponible, on l'utilise, mais c'est pas parce que la dette est disponible que vous êtes capable de la repayer. Mais ne vous inquiétez pas, avec de la discipline, si vous êtes dans les dettes, ce que M. Donald explique, c'est qu'il est possible de sortir de cela si vous créez une routine plus organisée pour repayer vos dettes. Et pour faire cela, il est conseillé de voir un conseiller financier. Vous pouvez aller à votre banque. Vous pouvez aussi vous connecter avec des conseillers financiers dans la communauté parce que des fois, ce qui se passe à la banque, ils ne vont pas vous dire nécessairement tout ce qui est disponible, mais en voyant d'autres personnes, d'autres options, vous pouvez mettre toutes ces connaissances et créer un plan discipliné pour sortir de la dette. Et puis là, vous pourrez épargner plus stratégiquement pour votre retraite.
All right, thank you so much. And yes, we want to keep our debt, at below 40% of our income. All right. And we were talking about retirement, right? When we start becoming seniors, we're talking about retirement, right? But like I mentioned earlier, we have to plan for it, right? And I always ask this question, and anybody, you can put your answers in the chat, right? At what age do you plan to retire? What age do you plan to retire? Right? Put your comments there in the chat. But while you're doing that, retirement is not, yeah, thank you. I see somebody put 65. Any other person wants to try? At what age do you want to retire? Yeah, 65 for most of us, all of us, 60. All right. So 60, okay. All right. Thank you so much. But yes, retirement is not a particular age. In Canada, the government says we can officially retire at 65. And that's just because that's when they start paying you certain benefits. But you can retire at any age. You can retire at 35, at 50, at 70. It all depends on you. Right? So retirement just means you're able to still be able to take care of your expenses without really going, to work, without somebody controlling your hours of work and all of that and paying you a paycheck, right? If you could take care of those expenses, you probably will retire, a lot faster. And we're fortunate that, in Canada, right, the government helps us when we retire in the form of some government benefits. But statistics shows that if you are single, you need somewhere from around 35,000 to 60,000 a year when you retire to be able to live comfortably, where you don't need to go to a food bank and all of that, where you can still take a vacation. Because by the time most of us reach retirement age, we're on some form of medication. We still need to pay our rent or our mortgage if we haven't paid it off. We still have to pay insurance on our cars and things like that. still have to put food on the table. So you need somewhere around this amount. And if you're a couple, you need somewhere around 40 to 70,000 per year. But let me challenge you here. A lot of people are living a lot longer now. Life expectancy is a lot longer, right? So assume you retire at 65. Like, let's go with what the government says is when we should retire. And it means I'm stopping to work, right? Which means it might reduce whatever income is coming in. And I'd live another 20 years, so till age 85. If I'm needing, let's go with a minimum amount, 35,000 a year to live in, 35 times 20 years is 700,000, right? For those of us that are seniors in here, do we have 700,000 or anywhere close to that to be able to live comfortably? If not, then there is a problem. We need to figure out a way how to fix that problem, right? And that's why understanding that now and working backwards can help us to overcome that challenge and make sure we enjoy that retirement, which is that long vacation that we're going to take, right? So you have to figure out how much, depending on our ages. Everybody here is on a different age, so I can give off a fixed amount. But it might mean you start saving $800 a month somewhere. It might mean for some people $1,000 a month. Do we have that amount of money? Especially when most of our money is going through taxes. Part of it is going for us to take care of these debts that are being charged to us in compound interest, right? So that's a big issue. But we are fortunate that the government gives us some benefits, right? And I think this is from about 2022 or so, or 2023. But it was about 27,000. That was the maximum we could really get from the government as benefits through, OH securities and all of that. But the thing most people don't understand is that for you to get that maximum, you need to have, worked in Canada for 40 years, 40, right? Some of the, the seniors on this call, maybe they didn't come here when they were young. Maybe they came after they were 25. It means you should have started working from age 25 to 65. When I came here, I was above 25, right? So I definitely cannot get that maximum. Also, you need to have been making about 50,000 or more each year in terms of annual income to qualify for this maximum. So if you're not doing that or you're below that, you cannot get this. And even if you were to get this maximum, it's still way short of the 35,000 that we're talking about. So what can we do to make up that difference? Statistics shows that most people will make somewhere from 10 to 15,000 a year. That's not even enough. It's a little bit above $1,000 a month. Is that enough to even just put food on the table these days with the cost of things? No. So financial education is very important because there are ways that we can go around it and help build up the difference from what we get from the government and what we are going to get, right? So that we can live a comfortable retirement, so we can pay off this debt that we have, so we can earn or we can reduce the taxes we pay. And that's the key of financial education. And most often, it's better when you sit with some financial professional and they can always help you walk you through it. But, we need to start having these conversations in our communities so that we start planning ahead. If I'm 50, I'm already a senior, but I still have a few more years ahead of me. What can I do? Right? And that's the key of why we're having this session.
Oui, alors ce que Monsieur Donald est en train de partager, c'est que en ce moment, les statistiques sont en train de montrer qu'une fois que vous entrez dans ce moment de retraite, une personne single, une personne seule devra faire près de 35 000 à 60 000 par année pour se supporter et un couple devra faire près de 40 000 à 70 000 pour se supporter avant la taxe. Donc, en sachant ceci, ça nous donne une idée de combien est-ce qu'il nous faut en fait pour la retraite. Malheureusement, beaucoup d'entre nous ne sont pas venus ici jeunes. Donc, même si le gouvernement va aider à supporter nos retraites, nous n'allons pas avoir la somme maximale accordée aux autres Canadiens. Donc, il est important de comprendre comment est-ce que vous allez planifier dès aujourd'hui votre retraite pour que quand vos 65 ans, qui sont, soyons honnêtes, très proches, vous soyez prêts pour prendre cette étape-là de vous reculer parce que malheureusement, avec l'âge, la santé aussi va s'ajouter comme poids et vous voulez être prêt pour que si vous devez réduire vos heures de travail, vous ne soyez pas poussé vers les dettes. Et pour cela, alors, il faut s'assurer de connaître quelles sont les options euh, disponibles. Comment il va parler de certaines options dans quelques moments, mais aussi pour une autre chose, c'est pour ceux d'entre vous, par exemple, qui avaient des enfants qui sont venus jeunes, ils ont l'opportunité, eux, de pouvoir avoir accès à ces 40 ans, cette somme maximale, tant qu'ils font 50 000, plus de 50 000 dollars par année. Donc, la clé vraiment de la connaissance financière, c'est d'être capable d'aller en retraite. Vous n'êtes pas obligé d'aller en retraite quand le gouvernement vous dit. Vous pouvez aller, comme il a dit, à 35, 50, 60 ans, dépendant de votre situation financière. Ce pays est très riche en opportunités. Donc, si vous partagez aussi cette connaissance aux personnes près de vous qui sont venus jeunes et qui ont l'opportunité d'avoir 40 ans avant leur retraite, il pourra aussi vraiment utiliser ces ressources pour que leur fondation de retraite soit plus solide dans quelques années. Parce qu'il ne faut pas attendre quand vous êtes à 40 ans, 50 ans, commencer à planifier comment sera votre retraite. Mais pour nous qui sont déjà à 40 à 50 ans, il est important de toujours savoir quoi faire maintenant pour que quand l'âge arrive, quand le moment ça arrive, nous soyons aussi proches de cette marge parce que, il faut être honnête, la somme est grande. 35 000 par année, c'est beaucoup. Donc, il est important de savoir quelles ressources vont nous aider à être supportés pendant ce temps-là.
Thank you so much. So let's look into some solutions. How can we tackle, these challenges, right? And like I mentioned, it's the lack of financial education, that's causing these challenges. So let's look at some solutions. And to look at some solutions, I want us to talk about some concepts first. I want to educate you about some concepts that are key. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so the very first concept that I want us to talk about is, the rule of 72. How many of us here on this call have heard about the rule of 72? You can put a note in the chat. The rule of 72 is a very easy and simple rule that makes a lot of sense when you understand it, right? It just tells you how many years it would take for your money to double depending on the interest rate that you're getting from it, right? And so it says if you take 72, the number 72, and you divide it by the interest rate you're getting, that's how many years it would take for your money to double, right? And so let's look at it here. Let's say, you're 29 years old. I know we're seniors, so we are more than 29 years old. But to better understand this example, let's assume we are 29 years old. If you're getting 1% interest in your money wherever you are saving that money, right? If you divide 72 by 1, it gives you 72. it means it would take 72 years for that money to double. So if you have 10,000 at age 29, you will not get 20,000 until you are age 101, right? So understanding where your money is, because the question I always ask a lot of people I sit in front of is, what's the interest rate? Like, what accounts do you have? And then they name them. I'm like, what's the interest rate that you're earning on this account? And that's when people start scratching their head. I don't know. That's wrong. We have to understand what interest rates we're getting. If you don't understand it, then that's a big challenge. Because once you understand this rule of 72, you should be trying to get the maximum interest rate you can get, right? The same like if you were to get 4%, then 72 divided by 4 means your money will double every 18 years. And the same if it's 6%, 72 divided by 6, your money will double every 12 years. And what about 10%, right? So a lot of times people ask me, but where can I get 4% or 6% or 10%? I know that's a bigger challenge with a bigger question, which we will talk about as well. But what I want you to understand is that understanding what you're earning wherever your money is very key, right? If I am 55 years old and I go to a financial institution and they tell me to open up a GIC, a Guarantee Investment Certificate or a savings account, that's giving me 1%. Because the interest rates are really low now. If it's giving me 1%, do you think I'll live to see that my money double? Of course not. So we have to understand and know where we can put that money so that we are getting a better rate of return on our money.
Oui. Alors, Monsieur Donald est en train d'expliquer la loi de 72. La loi de 72 est très utile quand c'est le temps de choisir où mettre votre épargne pour facilement comprendre environ combien de temps ça va vous donner pour doubler la somme que vous allez épargner. Par exemple, si vous mettez votre argent dans un compte à la banque qui vous offre 1%, ça va prendre 72 ans avant que cette somme va doubler. Si vous mettez dans un compte qui vous offre 4%, ça va prendre 18 ans avant que cette somme va doubler. Donc, quand vous êtes en train de choisir un compte d'épargne, ne prenez pas juste n'importe lequel. Faites attention à quel est le pourcentage écrit, quel est le pourcentage offert, parce que c'est là que vous allez vraiment voir si ce compte va vous donner de la fruition, ce compte-là va vraiment travailler pour vous. Maintenant, si vous regardez à des opportunités qui ont un pourcentage plus élevé, c'est-à-dire 6% à 10%, vous allez voir que d'ici 7 ans, votre argent va doubler. D'ici 7 à 12 ans, la somme que vous mettez, si elle n'est pas touchée ou peu touchée, va vraiment avoir un effet. Et je vous recommande, après cette présentation, de regarder quels sont les comptes d'épargne où vous êtes en train de mettre votre argent, parce que vous allez voir que beaucoup, les comptes qui sont recommandés directement, surtout ceux qui disent gratuit, 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 auront 0,01%. Donc, en fait, c'est 0%. Mais les banques offrent aussi des comptes avec des épargnes plus élevées. Donc, c'est important de prendre, comme il disait, la technologie et les produits sont tous en ligne. Donc, c'est important de passer un peu sur le site bancaire pour voir quelles sont les différentes options que vous pouvez prendre pour que vous pourriez vraiment doubler l'intérêt. Parce que si on paye l'intérêt sur les cartes de crédit, c'est aussi bien d'avoir un intérêt qui nous paye nous.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, and with technology, we can see what we are paying. We can easily log into those accounts and see what we are paying. All right. All right, let's go to the next slide. And on this one, it's very important here, explaining the difference between simple interest and compound interest. All right. a lot of us, when we go put our money in some financial institution, in the bank, for example, we mostly put them in accounts that earn us simple interest. But when we take those loans, those car loans and lines of credits and debts, all those accounts under the debt column we looked at in a few slides ago, those accounts, they charge us compound interest. Why is that? I want us to pay attention here. Let's understand the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Most people I see with only earn simple interest, but any debts they have, they pay compound interest on it. What's the reason why? We just saw the rule of 72, right? Which also tells us that if we're paying our credit cards, the turnover is high. We're going to pay a lot much more on that credit card because it's compound interest if we keep paying only the minimum amount, right? So simple interest just means interest is only calculated on the original amount or the principal amount. But compound interest means interest is calculated on the original amount plus any growth that is accrued on that original amount or principal amount, right? In this table right here, it's a better way of explaining it with numbers. Let's say two people are given 100,000 to invest at 10%, right? One of them only understands simple interest and the other understands compound interest, right? 10% of 100,000 is 10,000, meaning in the first year, they all will get 10,000 added to their 100,000, right? But from year 2, the amounts will be different. Why? Because in simple interest, if you notice, the amounts will just keep adding by 10,000 because simple interest is only interest on the original amount, on the principal amount. So every year, 10,000 will add on to it. But in compound interest, interest is calculated on the principal plus whatever added to it. So in year 2, in this scenario, interest is calculated on 110,000 for compound interest, not just on 100,000. Just like in year 3, interest is calculated on 121,000, not just on 100,000. And that's why you see that the column for compound interest grows a lot faster. That's why these institutions, they give you these loans in compound interest. They know they're going to make a lot. And that's why sometimes we pay and pay and pay and pay, and those debts don't go away because we are only paying the minimum. We are only paying the interest, right? So we want to understand this concept and be able to use it, not just pay debts and compound interest, but also figure out where can we also earn compound interest. I guess that's the bigger question most of us are asking, right? And that's why Albert Einstein, not even a financial person, but he says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it will earn it. And he who doesn't understand it will pay it, right? A lot of us don't understand this concept of compound interest. We just keep paying. Because if you see in these two people in the example, at year 40, one person ends up with 500,000. The other person ends up with 4.5 million. That's 4 million difference. They didn't go back and add a single dollar to the 100,000 that was given to them, but it's just their understanding of where they could earn compound interest, right? So it's very key for us to understand it and find out ways and places where we can be able to earn compound interest.
Oui. Alors là, Monsieur Donald montre qu'il y a deux types d'intérêt, l'intérêt simple et puis compound interest. Donc aussi, une autre chose à, à considérer quand vous choisissez dans quel compte investir, c'est quel type d'intérêt, non seulement le pourcentage, mais aussi quel type d'intérêt. Parce que comme vous pouvez le voir là, à la deuxième année, si c'est peut-être, disons que c'était 6%, c'est que là, vous auriez eu 10 000, alors que celui à côté aura eu 21 000. Donc, c'est aussi juste un petit détail qu'il faut aussi vérifier quand vous choisissez où investir. Est-ce que c'est un intérêt simple ou un intérêt compound? Parce que avec le compound, vous allez vraiment maximiser votre profit.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the next slide, and it should answer a question here from Bernabe. No, I think another one before. But in the slide here, how many of us ever think about inflation when we consider our investment? We don't. And that's why as seniors, we want to understand that, right? Not even just seniors. Everybody needs to understand inflation and how it affects our money. Because inflation is the rise in the prices of goods and services over time, right? Because I'll ask you a simple question here. For most of us, let's say you're renting an apartment. The rent you were paying 5 years ago, is that the same rent you're paying now? It's not. It's gone up, right? If 5 years ago it costed $500 for that apartment, I can't go back today to that same apartment and say, okay, here I got $500, give me a room. No, it doesn't work that way, right? And that's the power of inflation. Now, for me to catch up, I should have kept that $500 somewhere where it's matching up with inflation, so that when I go today and they say, no, it's not $500 anymore, it's $650, that my $500 has also grown so much so that we can be able to, meet up with the inflation, right? So it's very important to understand inflation in whatever we are doing. It's very, very key, because inflation will decrease the purchasing power of your money. What you can purchase today, if your money is not growing above inflation, you will not be able to purchase a few years from now. You would have to add to it. Most of us come from Africa, where back in the days, our, grandparents used to just put their money under their pillow, right? If that's the situation when they take it out to use it today, they will have to add some more money to it to buy the same things that they could have bought back then because of inflation, right? So we have to understand that and use it, because obviously in Canada, inflation is always around 3.15%, somewhere around there. So if your investment, wherever you're putting your money, is not giving you above that amount, then you're in trouble. You're not really ahead.
Oui, alors l'importance de l'intérêt quand on investit vient à cause de l'inflation, parce que l'inflation fait que le 20 $ d'aujourd'hui n'est pas le même 20 $ de demain. Donc, je pense que nous avons tous remarqué dernièrement, si vous faisiez peut-être vos courses auparavant à 200 $, maintenant il faut 350. Ceux qui louent, vous avez vu comment le loyer, la même maison que vous louez peut-être à 700 $, aujourd'hui est 1 000 $, peut-être même 1 500. Donc c'est pour ça que quand on investit, on ne veut pas que le 10 000 $ qu'on investit d'ici 10 ans soit toujours à 10 $. Nous voulons investir d'un pourcentage qui va dépasser l'inflation pour que le 10 $ là puisse combler les dépenses de 10 $ du futur au prix, au prix des dépenses au futur. Donc, c'est pour cela que on veut investir avec l'intérêt pour couvrir cette inflation qui va faire pour que le pouvoir de l'inflation soit diminué par l'intérêt qu'on va recevoir de nos épargnes.
All right, thank you so much. And just real quickly here to respond to you, Mamadou. All right. I'm not talking about a particular investment right now, because we all have different financial scenarios, right? The best way to answer your question and to show you the best investment you are in is normally to sit down with you and understand what your particular situation is. Because all of us have different financial situations on this call. So there's no one that fits all, right? So a lot of times I prefer to sit with you and understand a little bit more about your situation and what you want that investment for, or what you want. Then I can show you the best one, because each one comes with whatever you want and where you're going, what your goals are. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Oui, je vais juste traduire pour tout le monde la réponse à la question. En ce moment, nous ne sommes pas pour cette partie précisément, nous ne sommes pas en train de promouvoir un spécifique type d'investissement, mais les choses à rechercher quand c'est le moment de choisir à travers différentes options. Donc, comme nous sommes avec un groupe vaste de différents âges, différents scénarios, différentes poches de dette, que ce soit hypothèque, car loans, nombre d'enfants et tout ça, il est difficile de choisir quelle est la parfaite technique pour tout le monde. Mais ce qu'on est en train de faire, c'est des choses à noter que vous devez chercher une fois que c'est le temps de choisir. Mais maintenant, si vous voulez un plan, là, vous devez vous asseoir avec un conseiller pour qu'on étudie votre situation et puis choisir la meilleure option.
All right, and this slide is just to let you know that life is about choices, right? As seniors or as younger people, we have to make choices. We have to change the way we think. If we don't change the way we think, we will remain where we are. With technology, it's even helping us to be able to change and find out more information easily, right? But when you're able to make those changes, then you can start getting a freedom. If you increase your knowledge, you definitely can build multiple sources of income, right? Which can also help with reducing some of those debts that we have, right? If we are a little bit flexible, we have an open mindset, we can always also build in a business. You know, we can grow in financial education, like what I'm doing, and sit and educate people and be our own boss, right? You can always also change your lifestyle and change your purpose. You can always educate and help other families to build stronger financial foundation. So it's very important, you know, to have choices there for you, right? Understanding this and then putting it in place is always key. Taking action, and action for freedom, for flexibility, to just improve your lifestyle, to help your community. Those are all different choices which we have, right? And I definitely want to help my community in the choices that I make.
Nous avons tous le choix de choisir et ce qu'on va faire et pour quel bien on va faire cela. Donc là, on est en train de choisir, par exemple, de connaître et apprendre plus sur notre éducation financière et nous pouvons après cela utiliser ce qu'on a appris pour éduquer notre famille, pour que nous puissions aussi changer le style de vie des personnes autour de nous. Parce qu'à la fin, nous voulons que non seulement ça nous bénéficie, mais ça bénéficie aussi la communauté. Ça aide à créer les business dans la communauté. Ça aide à faire que vous devenez vous-même votre propre patron.
All right. So, and this slide here, I just want us to understand taxes. That was one of the first of the three big challenges we talked about, right? We have to understand that there are different accounts that most of us will use. And depending on which account you are, you can either get taxed now, you can get taxed later, or you can actually not get taxed, get a tax advantage, right? And it's important to know. Most of us, we keep our monies in our checkings or savings or GICs and mutual funds. These are all accounts where we get taxed now. So for example, if I give you $100 today, but I say I'm going to tax it at 5%. It means I'm going to reduce $5 from that 100,000 or $100. Are you starting with $100 from day one? No, you're a little bit behind, which means somebody that started at a tax advantaged position will start from $100 and grow up. You that are starting at a tax now position, you start here at 95 before you grow up to mid 100 before you start growing up, right? So we need to understand this, right? Or better still, be in the middle where there's a tax later account, right? And this is where we have our, our RSPs, registered retirement savings plans, or our ESPs for our kids, and all of that. These are accounts where the money grows in there, but then it's taxed later on when you start withdrawing the money, right? Or this third one, which is a tax advantaged account. And these are accounts like the first home savings account, the tax-free savings account, and yes, life insurance, right? This is called a wealth account. A lot of people don't understand that. Most of the people I sit with, all they know is the first one, the tax now account. And that's why all the taxes I mentioned, they get taxed even when they save. They get taxed when they go buy something, go spend their money. They get taxed when they receive their paycheck. So there's just tax everywhere. If we can understand that, some of that money can come back into our pocket, right? Which is where we will go, which is what we can use to reduce our debt and put some into our retirement, right? So to answer the question, Bernabe, we want to be in a tax advantage account. That's my recommendation. Second recommendation is be in a tax later account. But we really don't need to be in the tax now account.
Alors, pour résumer, comme on disait tout à l'heure, les taxes, c'est très important de connaître comment éviter de payer trop de taxes parce que si quand tu fais si tu achètes, je sais pas, un pull vert, tu as la taxe, après tu peux encore payer la taxe sur le gouvernement, ton épargne est taxée. Ça ne se voit pas directement, mais ça prend beaucoup de vos sous. Donc, il est important de connaître quel type de compte taxe comment. Alors, nous avons les taxes maintenant qui sont dans les comptes chèques, les comptes d'épargne, les comptes mutuels, les comptes gouvernementaux, ou bien les taxes après, comme ceux cités là, et les taxes avantagées comme le FHSC, l'assurance de vie et le TFSC. Pour petite parenthèse, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas le FHSC, ça a été introduit juste l'année passée par le gouvernement. C'est un compte très, très intéressant et très avantageux, surtout pour les jeunes. La seule chose avec ça, c'est que si vous n'ouvrez pas votre compte, par exemple, le TFSC, la contribution s'accumule. Mais le FHSC, la porte de contribution ne va être ouverte que à partir de l'année où c'est ouvert. Donc, surtout si vous avez des jeunes, il est important qu'ils ouvrent ce compte, même s'ils ne commencent pas à épargner, pour que leur contribution s'accumule avec le temps. Mais pour revenir pour les taxes, je vous invite même à prendre une photo de ceci parce que ça donne un bon résumé de quel type de compte tombe dans quelle parenthèse. Mais quand c'est le temps de créer maintenant votre compte d'épargne et d'investir, ceci est aussi une bonne chose de demander à votre conseiller de comment est-ce que je vais être taxé pour prendre plus d'avantages de ces différents programmes.
All right, thank you so much. And yes, and like I mentioned also, depending on your goals and all of that, we always sit and help you with which of these accounts are better, right? Where you should be. And I believe at the end, Justin will probably put my number on there. And if anybody needs help, and they can always reach out and I can, explain a little bit more and help them on how to open up any of these accounts. So this is just a little eye opener here. I wouldn't explain that much, but it just says, I wanted to see the effect of taxes on our money, right? It says if you take $1 and you double it 20 times without any taxes, so take $1 times 2, it will give you $2 times 2, will give you $4 times 2, $8 times 2, 16, 32, and all of that. You do that 20 times, it will give you 1,048,000. Okay? But now, take that same $1 and double it 20 times. But before you double it, you subtract 33% income tax. Most of us here pay somewhere around there. We just don't know, right? Because most of us, if you're in the lower bracket, you're making 18%, getting somewhere 18, 20% from your paychecks. Plus, when we go purchase something here, we're paying HST and all of that. That's another 13%, right? That's already about 33% of taxes somehow. So think about that. So see the difference? If you pay tax before you double that amount, you only end up with about 280,000. That's a huge difference. That's almost 800,000 difference, right? That's why we don't need to be in that tax now account. Because when we take tax before we double it, we're killing ourselves, right? And that's why it says the number one enemy to wealth besides procrastination is taxation. So we need to understand that. And that's why understanding it and going into places where we are not paying these taxes upfront, be it at a tax deferred place or tax advantage place, is important. And that's why I said, you know, when I sit with people to understand their situation before suggesting which of those places they should be. But I just thought I'd throw in this here so you can see the power of taxation.
Oui. Donc là, nous avons des chiffres qui montrent visuellement l'effet sur les taxes parce que les Canadiens ici, nous on paye, on ne regarde plus après. Mais les Canadiens ici, ils prennent vraiment du temps pour diminuer les taxes le plus possible et c'est ça qui crée vraiment la différence. Comme vous voyez ici, si on prend $1 et on double ça 20 fois sans taxe, sans avoir payé les taxes avant, on aura 1 million. Mais si vous prenez ce même $1, vous ne faites pas attention, malgré qu'il est doublé de la même manière, vous allez voir que à la fin, vous ne recevrez que près de 280 000 $. Donc, c'est vraiment ça qui fait la différence quand on parle des taxes, parce que sans se rendre compte, des fois, vous payez 2, 3 fois sur le même argent gagné, parce que on ne voit pas vraiment le flow, le suivi de comment est-ce que les dépenses se passent. Et puis, pourtant, si on utilise les mêmes sous stratégiquement, nous gagnerons beaucoup plus dans notre caisse d'épargne que de donner cela au gouvernement.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the next slide. And this was just to let us know, right? We have seniors on here, or we know some seniors, but that there are federal programs that are out there for seniors, right? And especially like the old age security, which most people will qualify once they turn 65, right? And it's also important to know that even if you haven't worked, but as long as you know you're here, you have residence here in Canada for more than 10 years, then you will qualify for that, even if you haven't worked. So a lot of times, some of our seniors don't understand and they don't apply for it, right? So you have to apply for it. Because if you don't apply for it, the government is not going to come, you know, chasing you and offer that to you, right? So, but just wanted to put this out there so we know, even though we haven't worked, we still can get something. It might not be much, but anything in terms of the statistics which we saw earlier is very important, right? Because more than 54% are struggling.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Donald. Donc là, il vous parle d'un programme précis, le programme de vieillesse offert par le gouvernement pour les aînés. Et si vous avez 65 ans ou plus et que vous avez vécu plus de 10 ans au Canada, vous êtes considéré, je ne sais pas si j'ai bien dit, vous pouvez appliquer à ce programme pour recevoir de la j'ai pas envie de dire subvention, mais je ne trouve pas un mauvais mot, pour recevoir quelques sous pendant vos retraites qui vont sûrement aider. Donc, il est important de prendre note de cela parce que le gouvernement ne va pas vous rappeler. Malheureusement, ça ne commence pas automatiquement. Vous devez appliquer. Donc, il est important de prendre note de cela et d'appliquer pour être sûr que au moment donné, vous serez en train de recevoir cela.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the next slide. And I think I already explained this one, right? You have to apply for it.
Oui.
All right. But one important thing here is that if you just go back, you have to make sure that you also file a tax return every year, even if you're not making money. But that's how the government is able to see that you've been here this length of time as well and things like that. And it makes it easier when they go to calculate and make those payments. All right. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Donc, merci, Monsieur Donald. Il a ajouté que euh, pour appliquer au programme, il faut aussi s'assurer que vous faites vos déclarations d'impôt chaque année. Même si vous n'avez pas travaillé, vous êtes censé toujours refaire des déclarations. Donc, si vous pouvez euh, appliquer chaque fois, c'est ça que le gouvernement va utiliser une fois que c'est le temps de faire le système de vieillesse.
This is a very important slide here to understand, right? When it comes to financial planning for our seniors, for their kids, for younger people, we have to understand that there are 4 stages. The first stage is protection. The second stage is debt management. The third stage is emergency fund. And the fourth stage is investment. Right? We want to go in this order. A lot of times, like I mentioned in my situation before, I was struggling to save $100. I was investing, but I didn't take care of all these 3 ones before. When you're building a house, what do you want to do? You want to start with putting a foundation. You don't start by roofing the house. You put a foundation first, and you want to make sure that that foundation is very solid. So that's a very thing. But before I explain this here, I would ask a simple question here. I hope it's a simple question, and please put some answers there in the chat, right? Let's say you have a machine that's making money, and then you have the money from that machine. If let's say, for example, there was a fire or something, so you have that machine sitting in a box, and you also have the money that that machine made sitting in a box. And you have the opportunity to pick one of those boxes and run out with. Which one would you pick? The machine that makes the money or the box with money that is already inside? Which one would you pick? And run out with? Okay? Some people say the machine. Yeah? Any other person with the thought? All right. Most people say the machine. And well, you can only pick one. Somebody said both. You can only carry one of them. But anyways, yes. The machine. Why? Because if I take just the box of cash, it might run out, right? At some point, it might run out. But if I take the machine, at least I know I can continuously produce money with that machine. All right? Why I brought that up is because now if I ask you that same question in a different way, do you understand or do you know that you are the machine that produces the cash? We are the machine that produces the cash, right? We have to protect that machine that produces the cash. It's very important. We need to protect that machine that produces the cash, which is ourselves. And that's why, in this financial blueprint, protection is very important. You got to protect yourself. You have to protect your life. You have to protect your ability to earn income. Because if you don't, then you can only rely on the one that you've already earned, and at some point it will run out. If you don't, you will only have that box of money with nothing coming, producing more of that money, and at some point it will run out, right? So we want to make sure that we protect ourselves, right? Protecting ourselves could be in the form of, life insurance and things like that. Remember one of the, the last items on that, on the slide before was tax advantage. It talked about life insurance. That's one of the places too that we can put our money, right? Protecting ourselves, but also, getting tax advantage growth. So it's very important. And I know, Bernabé, you also asked, where can we earn compound interest? Also in life insurance, we can also earn compound interest. It's one of the places we can. But protection is very key. Once we protect ourselves, then we can be able to sort out our debts. We can pick out which are good debts and bad debts and clear them out. Once we are able to clear out our debts, then we can start putting emergency funds. Emergency funds means if something were to happen today, if my car were to break down today, I should be able to go into my emergency fund and pick it up. If I were to stop working today, I should be able to have money to last me 3 to 6 months. That way it's time for me to find a job. Except it's a critical illness where I probably cannot work for a very long period of time. Then that becomes a different issue. And that's also an issue that can be addressed under this protection depending on the type of life insurance that you take, right? And then before we go to investment, we should only be able to invest once we've protected ourselves, once we've taken care of our debts, once we've put some emergency fund in place, then we can invest. I was trying to invest $100, but I had debt and I didn't understand that. I could have paid off the debts faster, then it would have given me enough money. The $100 I was putting in plus the $45 I was paying every month could now go towards my investment, right? As seniors, we want to leave something for our kids. That's what we want to do. As seniors, if we fall sick, who's going to pay for the house we're living in? The bills don't stop coming, but if you have the proper type of protection, it should be able to take care of that. All right, so we'll see a little bit of that before we round things up. But I'll let Justine, if you're there, to go ahead and...
Oui, alors, il est aussi important de savoir comment protéger nos investissements et protéger notre argent. Alors, pour cela, nous allons mettre des assurances sur, sur nos, euh, sur nos propriétés, que ce soit notre maison, nos comptes d'épargne et tout, pour s'assurer que au cas de quelque chose inattendu, nous serons capables de... Notre plan ne va pas complètement se casser. Une autre chose aussi, les fonds d'urgence. Donc, on a notre épargne pour des années, mais on a aussi une petite épargne, une plus petite épargne pour couvrir en cas de d'urgence, si quelque chose, quelqu'un tombe malade ou bien peut-être qu'on a une inondation ou pour une raison ou une autre, on doit arrêter de travail pendant quelques mois. Cela va nous aider à se supporter pendant cette période-là. Mais bien sûr, ceci est très difficile à faire si nous sommes dans les dettes. Alors, avant de se concentrer sur cela, il est important d'abord diminuer nos dettes, de réduire nos dettes.
And there is a misconception, especially when I sit with people from our community and you talk about a tax advantage account, and you bring in life insurance and they push away. They say, wow, you're thinking I'm going to die. No, that's not the reason. we're not trying to kill anybody here. We're just trying to make sure we can understand certain things that a lot of the wealthy people, the knowledgeable people are doing, right? Now, there are three different types of life insurance. There's group life insurance that we would normally get from work. There's term life insurance, and then there's permanent life insurance, right? Most people know group life insurance because most of us are working, and our employers will offer that to us. When our employers offer this to us, it just means that we're contributing into a pool. So that's fine. But outside of that, a lot of people only also know term insurance, which goes over a period of time. Very few people, less than 5% of people I sit with, understand what permanent life insurance is. And that's what I want us to dwell on a little bit of education on that, right? But just to let you know, when you have a group life insurance, right, it's very small because it's just cut from your paycheck. But if you can also see what happens when you have a group life insurance, is that when you leave that job, the coverage ends, right? For most of us that are seniors, sometimes we change jobs, right? Maybe you're here and you don't like it and you want to change. You have to understand your coverage will end during that time, right? And there's no benefit to it while you're alive, except you pass away, right? And the part that, baffles or strikes me is number 5 here that says less than 1% of people actually, get a payout in this type of life insurance that they have. Why? Because either when you change jobs, you've lost what you had before, or maybe you're in a probationary period, and what if something happens, right? And things like that. So we have to understand and make sure that whatever we're getting the right one. What's the purpose of getting it? And if we have the right one. Now, the second one is term insurance. Term insurance just means we're having it for a particular period of time. It could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? The good thing with term insurance is that it's relatively low. And because it's low, that's what attracts a lot of us. When we hear cheap, we go there, right? When we hear something is on sale, that's where we go, right? So the term insurance, it's relatively, lower in cost, right? A lot of people will use this type to cover their liabilities. If you have certain debts, you would use this to cover it, right? And you can renew it, or you can always convert it, to an extended coverage, to a permanent coverage, right? But what are the disadvantages of this? It's only insurable for a specific amount of time. You take it for 10 years, or for 15 years, or for 20 years, or whatever the term you take, right? But this policy will lapse if the premium payment is missed. And that's the big key. And statistics shows that only about 2% of people that have term policies actually eventually get a payout from it. Only about 2%. That's a small amount. And when I sit with people, maybe about 60% of them say they have some form of life insurance. 40% don't even have. But inside that 60% that have it, right, more than 80% of them have term insurance. They don't know about the other one. So if only 2%, around 2% will pay out, that's a small amount. We have to pay attention. Why? Because a lot of these policies might lapse if you miss a payment, right? The premium is wasted if you don't die within that term. If that 10 years passes and you don't die, that is gone. You have to renew it. You have to renew it. Take a new 10 years. And you're taking the new 10 years at a higher rate because you're 10 years older, right? So the thought of becoming uninsurable forces us to renew those terms at very high rates. The rates are very high. right? I've paid into it for 20 years. I took it maybe when I was 30. I've paid into it until I'm 50. Now at renewal, instead of maybe $50 I was paying before, now it's wanting me to pay $300. And I'm like, oh boy, this is too expensive. Even if I afford and I take it, it goes again for another 20 years. God willing, I'm still alive. After that, when I go to renew it, that $300 now is more than $1,000 a month, right? Now I'm under pressure of being uninsurable, and I go to renew it at a high rate. That a lot of times I would just let it go. I can't afford it. Now I'm retired. There's not a lot of money coming in, so I'll just let it go. And whatever I've put in there from age 30 till age 70 is gone if I'm still alive, right? And most importantly is the last one here. The policy cannot renew beyond a certain maximum age. For some providers, it is 70, 75, 80, it depends. So even if I have the money and I want to pay even $5,000 a month, beyond a certain age, I cannot if I have a term policy and I'd never converted it into a permanent policy. So all what I've paid into it all this while is gone. That's why I consider term insurance, in another way for you to understand it, to be like renting an apartment, right? And to link that up with permanent insurance, you know, if term insurance is like renting an apartment, permanent insurance is like owning a home, right? Because if you own a home, you're still paying what somebody is paying equivalent in rent. But if you sell that home, you at least get something back, right? There is cash value associated with this type of an account. It generates interest for you. It helps you to pay higher. It helps you to pay for higher costs of insurance as you get older. And that's why with a permanent insurance, the cost stays the same for the rest of your time, right? But the reason why I wanted us to look a little bit and understand the difference is because this is one of the places where you can earn compound interest. I saw that was the big question on the chat for most people. This is one of the places where you can earn compound interest. This is one of the places where I talked at the beginning about when we die and the probate court and all of that. This is one of the places where we can avoid the probate court. This is one of the places where we can have our money grow tax-free. We talked a lot about taxes, and we saw with the example of, us multiplying or doubling our money without paying taxes and doubling it paying taxes and seeing the effects. This is one of the places where we can be able to do that, right? We didn't talk a lot more about it, but this is one of the places where we can also encompass what if scenarios where we couldn't work because of a critical illness. This will cover it for us. It gives us the opportunity to be able to take care of that, right? And so that's why I want us to be able to talk about it. This is also one of those places where it gives us access to cash. We can actually go in there and take money and use. I always joke when I talk with people, and I say, when you have a term insurance, there's nothing else that you get from it until you die. And that's why when we hear insurance, most of us only know term insurance, and we're scared. We start thinking of death. I think they should call term insurance death insurance. That's me personally, okay? But we have to understand that that's not the only form. And this is one of the places now when you transition into a permanent insurance, which we have a whole life and a universal life, different types. And like I said, always, everybody doesn't take the same one, depending on why you want it and what your goals are. We have to always sit down with you and talk with you. Get a broader picture of your particular situation so that we can be able to help you, right? And that's why we always sit with people and show them. First of all, educate you on what is included in it. What do you get? What are the things that can come out of it, right? And then we help you put those things into place. But that's very important. We need to understand this and start reducing all these GoFundMes in our communities. We have to start taking some of these types of permanent insurance, so which we can always include it and take care of critical illness coverage and things like that. Because statistics shows that critical illness is the #1 cause of poverty in North America, in Canada, in the US. Critical illness. That's if you have a stroke, a cancer, and things like that, a heart attack, where you can't go back to work for a long period of time. But if you have some form of a permanent insurance policy for yourself, you can always go in there and be able to get payment, right? To still be able to live your life, to still be able to cover your expenses. We don't need to wait for GoFundMes to be able to live, right? And so I want us to always understand some of these things and take them into, I know we are running out of time, but before I show you the slide, I just want to say, we did talk about debt as well, being an issue, right? How can we, help our situation when it comes to debt? The first one is it's always good to consult a financial professional or advisor, because then they can see a holistic picture. They can see everything about you and then guide you in the best direction. Without knowing everything, sometimes you might not be giving the right. It's just like if you go to the doctor, if you're sick and you go to the doctor, you want to tell everything so the doctor gets a whole picture and then be able to cure you. It's the same thing with some of this financial situation. That's why I say one size doesn't fit all. Some questions that somebody might ask might not be the same for some other person, right? So when I sit with somebody, I want to understand, a lot of other things so that I'm giving you the proper medication for your illness. Because if you don't give all the information to the doctor, then they might not give you the right prescription, right? So that's always an important thing that we want to do. Another way of us reducing our debt is we have to adjust our budget, adjust our spending habits. Sometimes it could be because we're spending too much. We want to adjust that, right? One other way is for us to avoid paying only minimum payments. We should be able to pay above the minimum payments. That's one way of us reducing our debt, right? Also, we want to always list all of those debts down. You got to put it down so you can really see and understand what it is. And not just that, you will realize that not all of them have the same interest rates. Some are higher and some are lower, right? And we show you ways to tackle them. Maybe consolidate them, maybe refinance them, right? And those are different ways that we can definitely do that. But we wouldn't go too much into that because of time constraint. But I just want to say with a slide, with what is on my screen right now, is that making a decision or not making a decision, is actually a decision. And it is a decision to stay the same, right? If you listen to some of this and you don't go put action, you're just going to stay exactly where you are. It's the same like you didn't listen to it. Just like I meet somebody and they're like, oh man, I wish I knew this information 10 years ago. If you'd known it 10 years ago and you didn't take any action, you'll be the same where you are 10 years afterwards, right? So always take action. Make a decision, all right? And lastly, I end by this here. I like this quote very much. It says, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Where I am today is because of what happened yesterday. Where I want to be tomorrow is going to be because of what I do today, I have the power. One of the slides earlier was don't depend on anybody for your future, right? Not the bank, not the government, not your employer. You should be the one to dictate and create your future. All right, so that's kind of really what I wanted to say or share with you today. And I really thank you for your time. I know it took a little bit longer, but thank you for being here today and making the time.
But thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Donald, and for the presentation. It was very helpful. I will share your phone number in the chat here, as you said, for those who have more questions. Again, because we are a big group with different situations, for one person that's going to fit everyone, but we went over a bunch of different details that is good to look for whenever it's time for you to create your plan. So again, we're very grateful to have you and for all the information you have shared with us. And I'm sure that everyone here has learned at least one thing that they can take with them. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I know.
D'après la présentation qu'on nous a donnée, moi, j'aimerais en savoir un peu plus sur les permanent insurance. Ne fût-ce que nous donner les avantages et les désavantages, parce qu'on nous l'a présenté comme étant les meilleurs, et on s'est arrêté là. Si pour le moment, on peut juste avoir quels sont les avantages, quels sont les désavantages, parce que je sais qu'il n'a pas voulu entrer dans les détails, parce que c'est pas one size fit all. Je comprends ça, mais juste les avantages et les désavantages, et puis après, on pourra les contacter pour d'autres questions. Merci.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Noel. Yes, I can quickly, offer you a few advantages and disadvantages, right? In terms of a permanent life insurance, I know Mamadou was asking if I could present a scenario to explain that. I probably could have, but time constraint. But in any case, the advantages of a permanent insurance, which is what I was trying to mention before, is that this is one of the places you can get compound interest, right? It's also one of the places where you can get tax advantage growth, okay? Because, for example, when you have a life insurance, even be it any type, the payout, there's no tax on it, right? When we pass away. Think about the fact that you have a $500,000 policy and you pass away. Why do we take most of these policies? Is because we want to leave something for our family, right? Think about the fact that the two of you working in a household, both of you are bringing income for that household to continue to survive. So a lot of people would take this so that in case one person goes away, their income is replaced, right, with that. But that's just one of the reasons. So assuming that that person can get all of that income come tax-free is very big. Because if you were to apply taxes on that 500,000, they probably might only end up getting about, 300 and something thousand maybe, right? So it's tax-free benefit that you get from it. But I also mentioned that this is one of the places where it goes to avoid the probate court. We did talk about people not having a will and, our accounts going through probate when we pass away. So, and accounts like not just the permanent insurance, but all types of life insurance will definitely not go through that probate court. Also, with most of these permanent life insurance policies, depending on how it's set up, right, it will normally come with some form of critical illness coverage, some living benefits that you will actually enjoy while you're still alive. Like I was joking, a term one should be called death insurance, not life insurance.
That's true.
Right? So, but with this one, the benefits, God forbid I get a critical illness, I can also get, I can get some money from there. I can use it. It's growing cash inside of it. It also gives you that ability to be able to constantly put money aside, not just for insurance, but some of it going towards an investment component, which is now cash that you can access. All right. Now, the disadvantage to this, if there really is just the fact that it's a little bit more expensive than a term insurance.
A little bit or too much way expensive?
It's a little bit expensive. It depends on your age and other factors and how much you are taking and all of that, right? Yes, so but it's more expensive than a term insurance.
Okay.
Right? But for that, and what I see as benefits, it's worth taking a look at it. Because I'll give you a quick example here. I had somebody that took a permanent life insurance policy. Remember one of the things I showed you on the slide with the term policy is if you miss your payment, it will cancel, right? And if something happens the next day, well, you're out of luck. But I had someone with a permanent policy, and they had it for about a year or so. But because there was money growing inside of it, they got to a point where they were laid off from work and they couldn't make payment, right? Within the time they were looking for work, because there was money that had grown in that policy already, it could pay the policy by itself for up to 3 months before they started working and then continued. So they still had coverage over that time. So because it's growing cash in it, if there is a hard up and you can make payments, whatever is already grown inside of it can help you to keep that policy going while things change. All right. Thank you for the question there. And any other question? But we can talk more. You can copy my number here and you can reach out to me and I can always work something out for you and show you what the differences might look like.